Do you think men are important? Like for what?
Modern society we live in has been built by men.
Men that have sex with a lot of women are successful.
But when they come home now, the girl's like, oh, why should I cook for you?
Can you cook?
That's irrelevant.
The masculinity is under attack.
Traditional masculinity.
Men are withering and dying.
Not only is harmful, but could also lead to homophobia.
It's harmful to be stoic. It's harmful to be competitive.
Give them this message that it's okay to be a man.
It's not okay. It's necessary. What the hell are we going to do without men?
And when bad things happen, they call traditionally masculine men.
The modern world around us has convinced men that we don't need to be masculine, that we should be more feminine.
You need a firefighter. You need a masculine man.
They're under the streets, working on the sewers.
When you call the police because of the problem you had, you want masculine men.
They're keeping this impossible infrastructure functioning.
Stuff like saying, men should cry, men should do all these feminine things.
In this society, male energy, male thinking, male energy is
Being obliterated. Well, so then what do you expect?
You get school shooters, violence, you get rapists. Sitting here telling men to cry more. That is why we have the problems we have in the world.
What is a masculinity we can aspire to?
To put it symbolically, is that you're...
Masculinity has been the noise on the internet over the last 1 year, particularly in the self-development, in the personal development, in the self-help space. Masculinity is a concept that's taken over all previous ideas of self-help. If you went back 2 years and you looked up self-help and personal development on the internet, you'd find ideas such as becoming the best version of yourself. That was the pinnacle. That was the ultimate goal. People would try and make you. There were companies based on this idea. How do you become the best version of yourself? But sometime around 2020, something weird begins to happen. And that is the emergence of the man we now come to understand as Andrew Tate. Until 2020, 2021, 2022, before Andrew Tate was popping on the internet at the scale that he was, the ideas that we now associate with masculinity were hidden in a subculture on the internet called the red pill culture. The red pill is the classic metaphor from The Matrix, which is that once you take the red pill, you never go back to seeing the world as you did before. And the idea was that if you once understand that men and women are not the same, and you begin to see the differences between men and women, you will probably never look at the world the same again. Interestingly, around 2020, 21, 22, a loud, brash, boisterous, overconfident fellow jumps on the internet and with brute force, with fairly articulate opinions, not smart, not particularly the most precise, but fairly articulate opinions and a very interesting way of talking, broke the door of the cultural norm, where suddenly what was in the subculture, behind closed doors, in the corner of the basement, now became what filled the room up. Now, when you think of self-development, the first thing that you'll come across is guys like Hamza, guys like Andrew Tate, Tristan Tate, and the ideas of masculinity. This, one can say, is the age of internet masculinity. And through the length and breadth of this video, what I wish to do is help us understand the psychological, the philosophical, and the experiential nature of what it means to be masculine, and whether that is important for you or not. Right? And so we must begin by asking ourselves some basic questions, and then we must begin to dive deep into what it means for you to be masculine, whether it's even worth it, and so on and so forth. If you are interested in content like this, content around attraction that we built with fundamentals of attraction, shy guy socialization, we've been speaking about dating and relationships for a second, I have something mind-bogglingly interesting for you. You know, I've been in the business of teaching people how to talk to people with the art of conversation for quite a while, and now we are coming up with something super interesting. It's called the Art of Conversation Riz Edition, and we're doing a workshop to help 18 to 30-year-olds who want to get better at just interacting with the opposite sex. Only for men between 18 and 30. If you want to get better at talking to people, being more confident, exuding charisma and attraction, making sure that your compliments are well received, your ask-outs are in place, this is the thing for you. So, go to the link in the description. Ansh has done a brilliant job of copying and pasting a link in the description. Ansh is brilliant like that. Click on the link and sign up if you want. If it fits what you're looking for. We'll show you magic like you've never seen before. That's it. Continue watching the video and continue making your notes. Okay. Let's first ask ourselves, what is masculinity? Masculinity is the frame of taking on the role that is traditionally occupied by men in social units. What does that mean? Prakhar, you've communicated a sentence that has academic depth, that sounds very sophisticated in English. What does that mean? And I understand the urge at a point like this to check out of the video because, oh my God, this is going to be dense. But stick around. You might actually learn a thing or two. You might actually begin to respect your life, your father's life, your brother's life. You might actually begin to appreciate things that have happened to you up until if you stay till the end of the video. So I urge you, if you're a boy, if you're a man, if you're anywhere aged between 18 and 30, stick around. Try and understand the depth of this sentence. It's not as obvious as it might seem. The idea is that before things were safe, before we lived in this capitalist utopia where skyscrapers towered our imaginations, we were living in the jungle. Maybe after we were living in the jungle, we were living next to agricultural fields, next to rivers. We were always living in an environment where danger surrounded us. Humans do not necessarily have the sharpest teeth or the strongest claws or even the most magnanimous strengths in the animal kingdom. What we do have is the ability to cooperate. This is unique to humans. We cooperate and we communicate to cooperate. We speak, and in that we form groups, and in that we are able to defend ourselves against large enemies. Very quickly, in the times that we lived in the jungles and after, we recognized that there was a need for things to be protected, for danger to be herded away. And this job necessarily fell to men. Once things were protected, they needed to be nourished. They needed to be provided for. And this job fell necessarily to men. And then finally, once things were protected and nourished, they had to be led towards development and growth. This is the catalyst of all society and all civilization. This is the birthplace of everything we've come to appreciate as part of civilization. And that is where men became leaders. Masculinity in its essence involves only three frames. The first is that of the protector, the second is that of the provider, and the third is that of the leader. The one who guards the boundaries against danger, the one who provides against the threat of danger, and the one who leads against the anticipation of danger. This was the traditional role of men. And culture and biology have a very unique way of interacting with each other. They're not separate. The Hindus understood that the Purush and the Prakriti, that nature and culture moved hand in hand. And therefore society has evolved to a point, well, at least until the 1930s, where traditional roles were fairly separated. This is what it means to be masculine. If you can protect, provide and lead, masculinity done. The question emerges, if you are a fan of the internet age of masculinity, what about the bitches and what about the cars? And the bitches and the cars are essentially a marketing gimmick. If you are able to spot trends properly and go back a few years, Osho did the exact same thing with his Rolls Royces and his Rolexes. He understood that people are dumb enough to only be attracted to the shiniest object available to them. They will always be attracted to that nonsense. And so he would carry those cars. This is Osho's words. I'm not defending him. But he would carry those cars and those Rolexes as a marketing gimmick because people understood richness, people understood glamour, and people understood shiny objects. And this whole world of dating many women, sleeping with many women, or having your Bugattis and so on and so forth is the marketing packaging under which the actual substance of the idea of masculinity exists. But this begs some real questions. So we will start asking ourselves real questions. Question one is the point to be the most masculine person ever? Is the point to maximize myself in my masculine index? It's a very idiotic, almost this post-capitalist idea. This idea that things must be optimized for. You know how tech people approach things. Optimize things. Optimize. So must I optimize myself in the most masculine way possible? If you look at stupidities like cold showers, they're a form of optimization at this point. If you look at stupidities like optimizing for fun in life, you search Twitter, write down the words optimizing for fun in life, and you'll see how many people are trying to mathematically optimize for fun. The point of masculinity, or understanding the idea of masculinity, is not to optimize to be the most masculine person ever. The point is not to be the most masculine person ever. The point is to grow from being a boy to a man. Most men are boys. Most men spend their entire lives until a certain point occurs, and we'll get to that point, living a life of being boys. The point of understanding or playing with the idea of masculinity is to evolve, is not to optimize. Number 2, can women take on the masculine role? Yes, they can, and in fact, they must. If you notice carefully, feminism is an ideology that masculinizes women, asks them to take on responsibility in a very masculine way in the workplace domain. I understand the need. Women need to make their own money to feel economically independent, otherwise they can get choked by the men around them. I understand that. But what exactly is the glamour in going to an office and working 9 to 5? I do not necessarily understand. As a man, I have to do it. I have to. But if you notice, the dogmatic guiding principle of feminism, it is that of masculinizing women. It's not bad. I'm not complaining. I think it's actually quite brilliant in some way, because it woke up women to the idea that they need to take care of themselves, that society can put them in a place where they have to defend themselves, where they have to provide for themselves, and where they have to lead families, social units, societies, whatever groups of people. And if you've ever looked around closely, you've seen families that were led by women. Matriarchal families, where the grandma had to set up, where the grandma had to step up, where the mother had to step up. And if you haven't, I genuinely think you should, because it's very interesting. The third question is, should men take on a feminine role? And the answer is yes. If they do not wish to become very jaded, very colorless, very brutish, very mechanical, very melancholic about their lives, if they wish to enjoy the living component of life, if they wish to feel alive, yeah, they have to and they must. The point of masculinity and femininity is not to be one, but to have the ability to cultivate both. They have the ability to access and enjoy both. The fourth question is there a biological component to masculinity? And the answer is yes, to a great degree, yes. Men, on average, will be more masculine than women. Men raised in masculine environments will be more masculine than women, and this is where personality sets in. There is biology, there is Prakriti, and then there is Purush. Women raised in more feminine environments will be more feminine than men raised in masculine environments. It's a consequence of your genes and the environment you grow up in, and the exposures that you have. Sure, there is a biological component to it. To a great degree, there is biology. We don't even necessarily understand how biology truly expresses itself. There's so many mysteries there on the level of DNA and chromosomes, and the relationship between personality and genes. We don't know. But it is fair to say, from an anecdotal place, from just looking at society at large, that men tend to be more masculine than women. Women tend to be more feminine than men. Men raised in masculine environments tend to be more masculine than women raised in feminine environments. Fairly simple. The point again is not to have one, but to have the ability to access both and enjoy both. The next question is there a such thing as a masculine energy? Because very often, when you see a masculine man, you sense energy, right? That's how people talk about it. I sense the energy, and it's very masculine. And well, sure, yeah, there is a such thing as masculine energy, but I think energy as a definable concept is very tricky. I think what is really happening is that the person has been operating and is currently operating from a very masculine frame, from a very masculine mindset. And you can sense that. You can sense that in the way they speak, in the way they approach their environment, in the way they talk, and the way they behave. Their bodies kind of begin to reflect masculinity. I think one needs to understand the true depth of how the mind influences the environment to understand that mindsets influence energy. But well, that's for another day. We'll evaluate the idea. The bottom line question is, why is this internet age of masculinity such a prominence? What is the problem with modern masculinity? And the problem is very simple. Boys don't evolve into being men. Women are different. Women have biological pressures. Women have bleeding when they're 13, 14. Women have breasts when they're 15, 16. Women have male gaze on them when they're sometimes 14, sometimes 16, sometimes even younger. Women are forced by both biology and society to grow up very fast. Men, in the modern times, in this capitalist utopia that we occupy, in this brilliant age that we live in, where everything is safe, interfaced through technology, where most of our interaction is with technology before it is with the world, where everything is safe thanks to capitalism and international trade, thanks to the idea of modern nation state, thanks to this delusional dream of democracy. Men no longer have any pressures to wear the masculine shoes. Freud, on the subject of a boy becoming a man, said a boy does not become a man until his father has died. Freud said that it is almost important, it is almost non-negotiable for the symbol of rules to collapse, because the father is the symbol of the rules. Father is a symbol of the superego. For the symbol of rules to collapse before a boy begins to pick the shatters up and begin constructing his own worldview, his own set of rules. Freud said that it is not until boys have seen their fathers die that they become men. Think about it. And then Jung, his protege, his student, said, yeah, but that death can be symbolic. And this is where it begins to get interesting. Jung said that it is not necessarily for the father to physically die. That it could be that if the boy lives a life where his father is dead symbolically, he will have no other choice but to get up. He will have no other choice but to get his act together and become a man. It's a very interesting idea. The fact that I heard this joke somewhere, it's kind of funny, but it illustrates the same point where it said, women think men are the same, wait till our fathers die and then you will see how psychotic and crazy we get. Something along these lines. Same bloody idea. That it is not until the internalized structure of the world, which is represented symbolically in our psyche by our father, has collapsed, that we do not necessarily experience the outside world. Outside world. Hold this phrase. We'll come back to it. Earlier, historically, when we were tribal, when we were agricultural, pre-capitalistic, right? This interface between a boy and a man was managed through something we call rites of passage. If you look at even modern mafia culture from Sicily, there is something called making the bones, where a person has to commit a certain something, do something, because these are criminal organizations, to make the bones. Now you are fit to be in the mafia. Before this, you're an intern of sorts. You're a boy. Now that you've committed this, now that you've made your bones, you can sort of progress. We did a video on the Iboga ceremonies in tribal Africa. This was a few months ago. And Iboga was one of these interfaces where boys were made to eat Iboga thrown into the woods for a predator to come and eat them while the boy trips for 24 hours on one of the hardest known psychedelic substances on earth. 24 hours, this 14, 13-year-old is tripping, encountering real danger. And then he has to have faith in the villagers, in the tribals, the people that surround him to come and rescue him. And there was a whole theatrical enactment of this. But it was real danger. If you remember the movie 300, very popular, there is a moment where they talk about Leonidas' backstory, where he is facing a wolf, where he's out in the cold by himself, and he returns having killed a big wolf wearing the wolf skin. These are all rites of passage. This is how historically boys were made men. They were put into situations that were farther away from home. They were taken outside. They were taken outside their confines, the confines of their childhood, and subjected to real danger in one way or the other. And their ability to stand against it, their ability to toughen up when the moment called, their ability to protect, provide, and lead, or at least the proto versions of those concepts, the base versions of those concepts, that determined whether they were fit to be men or not. Those were proper examinations where the cost of the examination was life, not grades. Now we live in a grade economy. Now we live in toy world. At this point, the dangers that men fight for most of their lives are toy monsters, invented dangers. They fight their parents' preferences. They fight things their friends have, but they do not. They fight Instagram lives. They don't fight in real life. Men have no biological pressure to grow up. Not until their father dies. Not until real danger knocks on the door. And so men spend most of their lives being what women love to call men, man-childs, boys. No one goes outside. No one faces real danger. No one anticipates what danger could mean. And it is probably because of this that what at one point would have been considered things that a father teaches his son, that we need Andrew Tate to teach millions of people at this point. So, what is masculinity? What do I do? How do I get to this masculine place? What does it mean? Real danger. What does it mean? And all of that stuff. Let's begin understanding the mindset. And if you acquire this mindset, if you get this mindset into your bones, if you understand the system, if you feel it, if you begin to truly experientially feel it, you will need nothing else. Because at the end of the day, masculinity is a mindset. It's a way of approaching the world. Mindsets are not just mindsets in the sense, oh, positive attitude, optimism. That's, again, toy reality, bro. It's toy reality. It's games. It's monopoly. Not real. Mindset. Which is how do you factor the way you process the environment? What is your approach to the environment? How do you understand the world? Mindset on that level. That is why language and thoughts are important. Anyway, secondary topic. So, the mindset is you have to be useful to a social unit. What does a social unit mean? A social unit could mean your family. A social unit could mean your friend circle. It could mean a club you're a part of. For me, it is often the people I represent on the internet. For a lot of people, it's their city councils. For a lot of people, it's their religious affiliation. It's one way or another to draw a boundary around people. A group of people around a boundary is a social unit. You get to decide. That is the luxury of the modern world. You get to decide what is your social unit. Earlier, you were born into it. This is your tribe, this is your caste, this is your religion, this is your nationality, this is your geography. Now you get to decide. This is the luxury of modernity. Sometimes I don't even know the people I represent. I get to decide. Luxury of modernity. But I have to be useful to them. I have to look around and identify a problem in the social unit. And I have to take on the responsibility to solve it. I have to make that my mission. Only boys live for themselves. Men understand that for longevity, for courage, for strength, for all those things, they need to take on responsibility. So, I decide my social unit, I figure out a problem, I make it my mission, and then I put everything second. The guiding light in my life, the guiding principle of my action, the fundamental drive of my actions becomes my mission. You have to be mission oriented. That mission has to belong to your social unit. And then you begin finding a solution to that problem. The bigger the problem, the more important the mission, the harder you must work. The harder you work, the stronger you get, the more masculine you get. If you can, begin with one mission, begin with one problem. Make it proximate, make it around you. There is enough people around you with problems. Your friends, your family, look them in the eye, you'll only see problems. People love their problems. People are fond of their sadnesses. People have adapted themselves to this loop of familiarity. Look at that, examine it, and begin finding a way to solve it. That's your immediate concern. Once you solve it, once you've acquired the strength, once you've evolved as a man in that way, begin anticipating. Begin understanding. Begin figuring out all the ways in which dangers can knock at your door. And begin solving them in advance. Because if you look closely, if you look very closely at your life, your father did that. Hopefully, your father did that. If you look at it very closely, your coach and your captain of your sports teams did that. They had to, or they don't succeed. If you look very closely, you've been surrounded with fairly masculine men all your life. And they did what you did not understand. They anticipated the dangers and they kept preparing for it in some way. They kept building against it in some way. They kept building taller walls every day so that danger would not come in. And eventually what ends up happening to a man as masculine as masculinity goes is that you, metaphorically speaking, end up becoming the largest tree under which most people can find shade. That's what a friend of mine used to say. Become the largest tree under which most people can find shade. One of the most respectable qualities I will die remembering from my father is his absolute accessibility to help my large family. Anybody calls with a problem, yes, solve, don't worry. Deep respect. Deep respect. Most men worth $100 billion will never have from me. Deep respect. That is what a man does. It inspires. Do you see it? So, the mind frame of masculinity is that you belong to a social unit. You are nothing without a social unit. You must belong. There are people to be taken care of. And those people have a problem. That there is a large looming danger, if not immediate, then proximate. If not proximate, then anticipate it. It's coming. There is no way to avoid it. Death is always around the corner. Destruction, catastrophe, always around the corner. Problems, always around the corner. It is your job to solve them. You must make it your mission. And you must make this mission the guiding light of your action. And in doing so, if you manage to do this for even one problem, you will see that you will encounter 4 great friends. You will encounter traits in yourself you did not know you have. These traits are not developed in vacuums. Things, personality traits, characters, they're not developed in vacuum. People don't become great by doing nothing. They become great by fighting against adversity, by fighting against challenges and problems. And if you do your job as a man right, if you're able to access the masculine part of you right, if you take on that responsibility, the first thing you will encounter is strength. Because you very quickly understand that this is the place where I don't work for myself. So I don't have the convenience to lie to myself. I do this for others. And that breeds strength. If you're ever concerned about how did your dad become this strong, right? If you grow up, you'll begin to see that. If you're ever concerned about how did your mom become that strong, or anybody for that matter, how does Modi ji do all of this? He's so strong. It's because he takes on the responsibility and he does it for others. And that breeds strength. Strength arrives from others. Number 2 is sacrifice. And this is a part I think women need to understand more than men for that matter. Not because women don't understand sacrifice. Women understand sacrifice better than anybody. It's because women don't understand this in men. Feminine does not understand this in the masculine. Sacrifice. Tyag. Self-sacrifice. Atma tyag. Putting yourself second. It's a very complicated idea when you're 21 to understand. Because at 21, so much of your focus is you. Your parents raised you completely focused on you. Your school was completely focused on you. Did you do your homework? Did you get grades? Did you meet people? Whatever. Then Twitter and Instagram makes you focus on you. It's a narcissistically driven society. It's constantly telling you, look at yourself, compare yourself, and then present yourself dancing in a reel. And then put yourself across as the smartest person on Twitter or whatever else people need. There's a society-wide neuroses in the direction of narcissism. To constantly examine yourself as some kind of a scene from a movie. It's not even self-reflection. It's not even self-admiration. which is what Narcissus, where the word narcissism comes from, fell for. It's self-productification. And in that reality, for people to understand what it means to sacrifice the self in a fight for something bigger and greater than yourself is alien. And then for in this case, your woman to understand that you as a man would do that, completely different. How often have you heard, because I've seen these complaints enough, right? Wives complaining, you do all this stuff for everybody else. Why do you do this for everybody else? Right? I don't know if this is common with you. I don't want to assume. I've heard enough of that. Right? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I don't know what I want. I've been in my masculine too long. All I know is what I need to do and what I should do. What I have to do. What must be done. What I want to do is completely secondary. For so many men, they've forgotten what it means to want something. What it means to desire. What it means to, this is what I want. This will make me happy. This is what I meant by if you're too masculine, you'll become jaded and colorless in life. That's an extreme, but that's also a reality. For most of your life as a man, you come second to yourself. And that's painful because your mission comes first and the people enveloped in that mission come first. For the people who are impacted by your mission come first. You live a life of self-sacrifice. The third is discipline. Because nothing great can be accomplished if your impulses rule you. If your whims are the guiding light of your life. If pleasure is what you seek. Nothing great can come from it. Weak. Nietzsche spoke about it when he spoke about the idea of the Übermensch. The Superman, the Uberman, right? Very common idea. Anybody who's taken intro to philosophy, anybody who searched YouTube enough has come across it. The idea of Übermensch. How to become a man bigger than man itself. What you could attribute to Andrew Tate saying as the masculine man. And Nietzsche said that the idea of the Übermensch necessarily goes through self-overcoming. Where the self has to be overcome. Where the self demands, the self wants, the self seeks, but it must be placed second. Where the battle of the self is completely reduced and minimized, so you can focus on what must be focused on. If you notice, it's very similar to the idea of sacrifice. It's very similar, almost as if sacrifice leads to discipline. If you are able to second yourself, if you're able to say, I come second, you are automatically able to do the more disciplined thing in life. And the fourth trait that you will encounter in yourself is that of endurance. Because, my God, does pain hurt. Pain hurts. The tests will arrive. Pain is a test. Uncertainty is a test. So much uncertainty. As a man, when you're leading an organization, when you're leading a social unit, be that an army, be that a company, be that a team inside a company, and things are bad and you do not know how they will look good. When your family is going through hard times and you do not know what it means for that to be okay, and you look at everybody in your family, you meet them in the eye and you say, don't worry, it'll be all right. You don't know. There's no way of knowing how it'll be all right. For months, sometimes there's no way of knowing how it'll be all right. You don't know if you'll survive. Think of Leonidas right before the war of Thermopylae. Thermopylae or whatever the pronunciation is. He looks at 300 soldiers in his army and says, don't worry, we'll figure this out. When there is an army of 1 million arriving from Persia or wherever they're arriving from with Xerxes. That amount of uncertainty and that amount of confidence in the face of that uncertainty, that's test. That's a real test. And then there is the test of rejection. Because if you take upon anything noble, if the mission you take upon is grand in any way, is meaningful in any way, then you will also face rejection. And the most common form of rejection and the conversation around rejection we come across in tech entrepreneurs, because they come up with hypotheses and products that will transform these hypotheses into solutions, these problems into solutions. And people are like, nah, this is not going to work. And they have to go through VC, other founders, conferences being rejected constantly. And that's when the real test of your masculinity arrives. Are you still willing to stand by the virtues when times get tough? When nobody is by your side, are you still fighting against the danger? Are you still standing by your virtues? And this builds endurance like nothing else. And if you want to look at what endurance looks like, look at your father's eyes. Having said that, you have one small piece in this puzzle that I need to address, because otherwise things might not do justice to things, right? And which is the feminine piece. If this is what we've given for free, imagine what I do when I turn up the heat and make it more advanced, bro. Like, that shit's dark arts right there. And I'm telling you, because I've been building the syllabus for it. I've been working on this for a couple of weeks now. And every time I add to the syllabus sheet, I'm like, this shit is dark arts. This should not be sold. Like, this shit's supposed to be told to your kids, to your son, bro. But yeah, we are doing a workshop on this. It's called The Art of Conversation, Riz Edition. It's on the 1st of July. If you sign up now, you get a discounted price as always. If you're part of the inner circle, if you've bought AOC, if you're on the email list, if you are a member, you get a discounted price. You can go sign up now. As the month progresses, one, we have only limited spots. This is the first iteration. We'll only take 500 spots, no more. Maybe we want to do a second iteration at all. One, it's only limited spots, and two, it'll get more expensive. So go to the link in the description. Ansh has done a brilliant job of copying and pasting a link in the description. Ansh is brilliant like that. Click on the link and sign up if you want. If it fits what you're looking for. We'll show you magic like you've never seen before. That's it. Continue watching the video and continue making your notes. What is the opposite? What does it mean to be masculine and the feminine? What is that dichotomy? Because we've understood masculine to some degree. We've understood the traits. We've understood common questions that emerge from it and what that mindset should be and what I should do. What you should do is find a problem and solve it. Take responsibility for it. But what is the feminine and why is that the opposite of the masculine? And I'm not sure. I haven't been able to construct something concrete in my philosophical thinking for it, but I have an idea. And tell me what you think about the idea. The idea is this. Masculinity looks at the environment and asks what needs to be done to it. And femininity looks at the environment and asks what needs to be lived in it. It is the difference between what must I do to change the way the world is versus what must I live, what is happening to me, how must I experience. And I think that that's as far as I've gotten. I'll come for further later. I hope you've enjoyed this. If there's any remaining questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. We will be back on the weekend streaming. Thank you so much, as always.